Good morning, ECOS line team. We're coming to you, Mr. Lito's doubleheader. This is game 2. We just finished game 1, and if you didn't see game 1, go back to episode 057 and watch Lito and I talking about assumptions. He did a great job of outlining and setting that up for game 2. Game 2, he's going to get more into the details as far as reframing risk. That's what 058's called, and Mr. Lito's here again. And it's going to be awesome. We're glad you guys are here. We got a little rain action. It's a little cool here, November 2024 in South Carolina. And just real quick, we got the bierermeters hat, ECOS right there, Electrical Safety, American flag. We've got the 2024 International Linemen's t-shirt. Check this out. We got ECOS. We've got some live wire right here on the sleeve. We got Beer USA. We're hosting ECOS, right? So we've got to get something. But the theme this year, check it out. The back of the shirt, these are going to be on our website. They're actually, we gave out 700 at the International Linemen's Rodeo, and the linemen went nuts over these t-shirts. But this theme this year is the perfect job brief. They'll be available. I think they're going to be $35 plus shipping, whatever. Anyways, they're very comfortable. I actually have one from 2023 on right now. It's beautiful, and it's called the Perfect Job Brief. The reason why we call it the Perfect Job Brief on the back here is because there is no perfect job brief. Because we as humans, our line crews, each one of us individually are not perfect. So we have to rely on one another. And when we rely on one another, guess what? We work together, we become smarter, we become stronger, and guess what? We're safer. So Mr. Lito, he's going to bring some good stuff to you. I don't want to talk too much about him because I talked about him a lot the last one, 057. But he came here. Everybody, you all need to know what's going on here with Electrical Safety. Lito, he paid for his trip all the way from California to South Carolina out of his own pocket to bring this to you all because he cares about you. He's a person that believes investing in people, not in the stock market, but in people, because that's true value. It's real treasure. And he came out here on his own time, his own dime. So let's support Lito and thank him, contact him, reach out to him. He'll have all kinds of contact information for you. And he's a good person. I'll tell you what, I met him 3 years ago, and I've seen him grow in our industry so quickly over the last 3 years, and you're going to really enjoy 057 from earlier this morning, and I know 058 is going to be awesome because Lito's awesome. Right, brother? Okay, thanks for coming, Lito.
Thanks, Brent.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Here you go, man.
Thank you, man.
Okay, you got it.
Appreciate it.
You bet, brother.
All right, good morning. Out here in the beautiful South Carolina rain. Got my hoodie on underneath this shirt to stay warm while I do this class for you. I'm bringing this to you because I see it's something that we need as a trade to pay attention to. We need to recognize it. Like Brent said, if you didn't see 057, part 1 of this, if you're watching the recording, go back and watch that one first so you can understand what we're talking about when we talk about assumptions. In this presentation, we're going to dive into reframing risk. So identifying those assumptions and how we can identify them, and then what we can do to protect ourselves from them. So before we get into that, I do want to, like I do with all my presentations, I want to take a moment and stop and bond on as a team. Bond on, that's a term we use in the bare hand community. Anytime we're getting ready to go and become energized, we yell out bonding on, so that our team knows we're going energized. I don't go bond on until I hear the team reply bonding on, so I know that we're all together, and then I can bond on. So with that bonding on, let's come together as a team right now, open our minds, open our hearts to the message that I'm about to share with you. It's very important. It's one that I've learned through my mistake and lived through. And unfortunately, it's something I see too often men and women getting hurt in the field, and also dying, and us losing them altogether by trusting assumptions. So what is our ultimate goal in life? Yeah, we got a job, right? We got to bring money home to the family. People need electricity. We're building line. We got to get that job done. The company we work for, they need money to run, right? So we got to get that job done so they can make their money. But the ultimate goal at the end of every day, at the end of every shift, at the end of every project, at the end of every year, is that our team, every member of our team has made it home safely with their family, right? Able to do the things that they do all the time, the stuff that they love doing, so that they left home in the morning and returned home in the same condition, if not better, at the end of the day. And safety is not just a profession, is not just professional, it's personal. So when we think about that, right, we're out in the field, we're working as a line team to get the job done. We're not doing it just for ourselves. We're doing it for those people who are waiting, counting on us to come home at the end of the day. If we lose somebody on the job site, if you look at the picture of the family all together there, right? It's not just the wife who's lost her husband. It's not just the daughter who's lost their father. It's generations have lost something, right? And so it's big, and we need to mind that and respect that. And the true measure of success, like I said, isn't project, finished, money coming into the company. It's we are home with our family at the end of the day. And so when we don't meet that, it can be pretty bad, right? Employee gets injured, he's got to spend time off work, his family loses out on some money, right? The company is losing reputation, right? Because they've had an incident. And then on the really hard ones, right? When we lose somebody, you have a family who's got to go through some grieving, who's got to live with the loss of not having someone there. And so the cost is severe if we're not working together as a line team and checking in on each other throughout the day to get there. But the goal is within reach. We have the knowledge, the tools to be able to make this happen, to get home at the end of the day. We have everything we need to do that safely and get home. It's getting everybody on the same page, being able to do it as a line team and get home. That we need to concentrate on. It's a shared goal. It's not just me going to work. I can be on point all the time, and somebody else make a mistake that ends me up in the hospital, right? It's all of us together, working together to get to that point. And we're going to talk about that. The whole point of this is becoming a team in sync at all times, because we're allowing opportunities for risk to invade on our plan and our project if we're out of sync, if even one element of our team is out of sync. And so there are many hazards on the job site that you can see. Most of them you can identify them, but there's one that is in my opinion very, very large that you can't see. And if your team is out of sync, your team's not speaking to each other, your team isn't connecting, they're trusting on assumptions to get them through that day. And so that hazard is the assumptions. And it's one hazard that I learned the hard way through my accident, and I identified. And now that I've been, in the safety side of things since 2015, I look for assumptions in everything, every incident review, near miss, even in the good catches. What assumptions were made within the realm of this incident or near miss that could have contributed to, or if not caused, the incident. And so assumptions are huge. In 057, I talked about assumptions and how they sneak in, and it starts with routine. We get into the pattern of doing things so much that they become familiar to us, right? We get comfortable, and that's where we start trusting those assumptions. You know, like my car worked perfectly fine yesterday. I had no problems driving from Charleston here to Blythewood to be with Brent today, right? But today's a different story. So I can't just go with what I went with yesterday, you know, and trust that everything I did yesterday in that car and the way that I drove is going to work for me today, because there's different circumstances today. It's raining, right? And every job site that we go to is loaded with different circumstances. It doesn't matter if you're working on the same street. When you pick up from that pole and you move up and you set up on the next pole, you're going to have a whole set of different circumstances to deal with. That's where taking a moment to pull back, we're going to talk about this framework that I put together that's going to help you. It helped one of my clients reduce their work procedure errors by over 83% in a year by implementing this framework. And I'm here to give you that tool so you guys as a line team can utilize it to ensure that everybody makes it home at the end of the day. Now, the impact of assumptions is real. It's heavy. If we continue to trust in assumptions, like I said, Brent, if we go back to 057, Brent and I did a little experiment with Jenga blocks, right? And as you start moving Jenga blocks out, you're trusting an assumption. Take that out of there. The more you trust an assumption, eventually you're going to erode the safety of your crew, your team, of your job site, of that project. And when it falls, somebody's going to get hurt or killed. And so, you know, I know this firsthand. Most of you have heard my story. I suffered basically a life-altering accident, and I'm standing here in front of you, right? Standing here in front of you, able-bodied, because I was blessed that day with basically a get-out-of-jail-free card. You know, a new start to my life. One where I was able to look back at how I worked my entire career up to that point, identify where I was wrong, what I was skipping, what assumptions I was making, and when I look back at how I worked, assumptions played a huge part in a lot of the mistakes that I made coming up, and the part that brings me here today and makes me strive to get this message out is I see these assumptions made on a daily basis in the field now with all the crews that I go and see. And a lot of the times they're the same assumptions the other crews are making. We're all making these assumptions. And the thing about assumptions is they make life easy for us. Our brain is constantly looking for opportunities to make things easy for us so we can get through the day, right? But if we don't challenge assumptions and ensure that that assumption we are making is true, we leave ourselves to chance. We rely on luck to get through the day. And we can't be in that mentality. We can't be in that attitude in the high risk environment that we work in. So when we talk about assumptions, friend or foe, scientists, researchers have identified that we make 35 up to around 35,000 decisions a day. And a good majority of those assumptions are not assumptions. Decisions are assumptions, are relying on an assumption to help us make that decision. So when you think about that, you know, and just a fun fact, about 200 of those decisions that we make a day are just around food. What we're going to eat, where we're going to eat, am I going to eat, you know? So pretty interesting stuff when you start digging into the assumptions, the decisions, what drives our decision making. There's a lot of great books out there to read on that. Like you sitting here watching this webinar today or watching the recording of this, there's probably a handful of assumptions you made already, right? I can even say you're watching this just assuming that this is going to be just another presentation I can zone out and look at my my phone right now. Well, put the phone down because I got a message for you. This is important and it's going to save your life. This is my purpose now. I was saved in 2015 for this purpose, to help my brothers and sisters out there in the field return home to their loved ones at the end of the day. And it's one of those things that that sometimes keeps me up late at night, wondering how I can get this out to more people, because we are still steadily losing brothers and sisters in the field to accidents, and we should be at the point where our strength is so good that we should see those numbers going down, but they're not. Assumptions are hidden in everyday tasks. You know, climbing poles, driving's a huge one. We make a lot of assumptions, and that's a very dangerous place because we can't control the other drivers. So, you know, like for me, I mean, I had this morning coming here with my son, he and I had a conversation about driving, and when I drive them to school, I can almost do it on autopilot, you know, and I can recall sometimes that I didn't even remember going through a certain intersection because I was either so, you know, in autopilot and having a conversation with my children, or in deep thought about what I want to talk about when I go to work today and you know, train, that I zoned out while I was driving. And because we can't control what other people are going to do, and those are new people than they were yesterday and the day before, it's a different, you know, a different environment than we've ever been in. Same thing with when we're, you know, excavating. You know, I came to this pole. I set this new pole 6 months ago. It was clear I don't need a USA to drive a ground rod today. Yet, since I drove that, I installed that pole 6 months ago. I'm not taking into account that phone came behind me, installed their stuff there too. Gas came behind me and put their stuff in the dirt. And now I have a bunch of hazards in the dirt that I didn't identify that I could be driving my ground rod into. So I want you to think for a second. Can you think of a time when you assumed something was true only to find out later you were wrong? I know that I can. And that's where I'm at. That's why I'm where I am now. I have had the opportunity to assess my life over the past few years, and now I'm bringing that opportunity to you, because I would much rather you learn from my experience than to go through what I went through and hope that you're blessed enough to be able to make changes after you have an accident. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I got lucky that day. You know, somebody was watching over me. That accident should have killed me. I've had engineers come to me and say, "Why are you still here?" You know, I know why I'm here, and it's for this purpose. I want to talk about a few incidents. We're going to go review a few incidents that I've reviewed over the past few years, where assumptions were the key root cause in that incident. And one of the first things that I want to talk about is when I go around, the first thing that I realized coming out to the contractor world, because when I came up through the apprenticeship, I was at the utility. And the utility there in California, actually California requires you to do an air and water test on rubber gloves. So anytime you use your rubber gloves, you will do an air and water test. I know that some states don't require the water test, but they recommend it, right? And so what happens with a recommendation? If I'm in a hurry, I'm going to do an air test and I'm good with it. But I want to tell you, when you're on a job site, which is where you're going to do an air test, right? And you got a digger derrick setting up over here, right? And cars driving by. How are you going to hear an air hole, a pinhole in your gloves when you're doing an air test? It ain't going to happen. I mean, I'm standing here. It's not that loud. Even with the rain on this right here, I'm not going to be able to hear it. But if you take the time to open your glove up and pour a bottle of water in there, right? And you apply that pressure, you'll find a pinhole in that glove. And so since I do this so often, right? So if I'm using my rubber gloves 2 times a day, right? Essentially this bottle of water that I just used here, I should be able to drink the water from this glove, right? Because I've washed this glove so many times, it's clean. But now I've put water into this. How you guys like my my little homemade roller? Now we apply pressure to the glove, right? And if you apply enough pressure, you're going to be able to find, now in class 3 gloves, it's a little harder, but right there, we got a water drop coming through a pinhole. A pinhole that I wouldn't have been able to identify with just air. And what's the pinhole giving you? Well, there's a failed glove, right? And so if we're not taking care of our gloves, if I'm wearing, you know, bad protectors, then you're gonna have a bad day if something goes wrong up there, and you didn't identify that. And so I bring this to you guys because it's something that I see in the field a lot, especially on the contractor side. We get a lot of contractors from all over the country that come here that hadn't even done a water test before because they're not required to back home. And it's a deadly assumption that that we need to fix. So moving on, when assumptions lead to risk, and so this video that I'm going to play here, this is an incident review. This is actually my pickup truck on the route that the driver took that day, and so this driver is this is an area that he grew up in. It's up in the Gold Country in California. He's driving a digger derrick, a 2-axle digger derrick, down this road, and he's coming into a small mining town called Volcano. So this is his first day on this crew. He was on loan from another crew, so it's his first day driving this truck for that crew. And he pulls over here to let a pickup truck go by because he knew he was coming to a steep grade coming into that little town. So he pulls over, lets the pickup truck go by, and then he shifts his truck down into that lower gear so he can be prepared to just take it easy going down that hill. Very experienced journeyman lineman driving this truck today. And so as he's going down this hill, he's got his digger derrick. He's towing a water buffalo behind him with 500 gallons of water in it. So a lot of weight behind him, pushing him down that hill. As he's coming down the hill, he applies brakes to start slowing down, and he hears a pop and loses all brake pressure. The brake pedal goes down to the floorboard, and so he starts pumping the brakes, and he's got air. He can feel the air, so it's not an air issue. He starts laying on the air horn to let people know at the bottom of the hill, this tourist town of Volcano. This is a very tourist active town down here that he's familiar with. He wants to ensure that nobody's in the way when he gets down there. He's pumping the brakes and nothing's happening, and so I don't know how he got to the bottom of that hill, but as he's coming down the hill, he starts blowing on that horn, and he's coming around the corner, and what's going through his mind is, okay, well, I'm not going to hit the cafe to slow me down because there's a cafe down here. I got to stay away from that. On the other side of the street, there's a museum from the 1800s. I don't want to take that out either. So his focus was on keeping that truck in the middle of the road as he goes through this small town, which was about 100 yards long. At the other end of the town, it's a sharp right turn that he knew he wasn't going to make. And so he basically resigned to the fact that he was going to ride that truck off into the ravine at the end of this road. And he was committed to that. That was his words to me when I interviewed him. But when he came into the town, you see the stop sign coming up here. That pickup truck that he let go by was stopped at the stop sign, which made him veer to the left to get past it. And doing that, he clipped the back of the pickup truck just a little bit. But that clipping that pickup truck forced him to go over. You see where that pickup truck is by the stop sign right there. There's a large tree. He clipped that large tree right there. Actually, it's behind that truck right there, the Ram with the camper shell. There's 2 oak stumps. They cut the trees down and left the stumps there. in front of that cafe, and ripped the rear end of the truck out from under itself, and it basically stopped in the road like that. So here we have everybody in town heard something coming down the hill and got out of the way. That's the cafe where the Coca-Cola sign is. Usually that's lined with people waiting for the cafe to open and go in. They got out of the way because they knew something was coming down the hill. And then that pickup truck that he let go by caused him to hit the tree, which ripped the rear end out of that truck and stopped him right there in the middle of the road. Nobody injured. You know, the company lost a truck in the whole thing. But all this came from the assumption that because, and this is an assumption I see a lot of drivers making, because this truck is inspected by a mechanic every 90 days, I don't need to climb under the truck and look at the brakes to ensure that the brakes aren't worn too bad. This truck, the brakes were so worn that when he applied pressure to the brakes, they cammed over. So they were so worn that they were out of adjustment and cammed over. What he didn't take into account, and these are those other factors, those outside factors that we can't control. We can identify them, but we can't control. Who normally drives that truck is one of them, right? Where are we normally driving this truck? What are we normally doing with this truck, right? So here he is. He's got this digger derrick. It's always pulling 500 gallons of water behind it. So it's always towing weight up and down these big hills, right? And the normal driver for this truck is a first step apprentice who doesn't have experience driving in hills. So essentially what happened to that truck was, over the month and a half that apprentice was driving it, he was burning up the brakes because he didn't know you needed to shift the gears down, you know? And so the company identified that, hey, we have a training gap, you know, identified that, hey, when we move people around, we need to assess and make sure that they're ready, trained, and able to do the tasks that they need to do in that area. What he learned in the valley when he came on the company is not going to work in the hills, you know. He got really lucky on this one. There's another one. Crew assumed that setting up the truck like we always do, just the standard outrigger pads are going to be good, but they didn't take into account that one, location. This is in the Delta in California, so the ground is saturated with water. It was a good year for rain. You know, fortunately for this crew, it was a setup day. So, you know, they were setting up, and as soon as they boomed that truck over to put the man basket on the jib tip, it just slowly started sinking. Had this happen on you know, the work day, you would have had 2 journeymen up in the man basket, and that thing would have went over a lot harder, right? And then this one here, this is one that I see a lot of too. This is where the crew gets out of sync, right? We've done this so much that we get into a routine. We get comfortable, right? Crew goes up there. They got 3 sleeves, 3 automatic sleeves, and one on each phase. They go up to the first one. They throw their Mac up there. They're in rubber glove mode. Throw their Mac up there. They get their hoist in there, suck a bubble, cut the splice out, put a press sleeve in, right? And they come off everything. They do it to the center phase, come off that, and then when they come into the third one, they're in that autopilot mode, right, where they're just going, you know, 1, 2, 3, going like a machine. And the first lineman throws his up there. There's no communication between the two of them. Assumes that his brother's right behind him and cuts the wire before he gets his Mac on there. Fortunate for them, it was a tap line. It wasn't like a main feeder where they had a lot of load on the line, so there was no you know, arc flash or nothing that happened in front of them that could have burnt them. They learned a lesson from this, and I'll tell you one thing about this one for me. It doesn't matter what rate you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. We all make assumptions, right? The person that made an assumption on this job site that day was a 40-year lineman getting ready to retire. And he sat on that tailgate as I interviewed him and said, I've been doing this for 40 years, dude. I've never done anything like this. I don't know what happened, where it came from. You know, so we all make assumptions. And what I'm here today to do is to teach you how to recognize them, identify them, and how we can get past that. All right, so how do we spot assumptions? Right, so familiarity and routine, right? We tend to assume things are fine when we've done them so much, right? Lack of verification, right? So if we're not verifying things, if we're not verifying that something's been done, if we're not verifying that we're in the right place, if we're not verifying that the utilities, the ground is clear of utilities, we're relying on assumptions, right? If something hasn't been verified, there's a good chance you're relying on that assumption. Time pressure. We get in a hurry, we're getting ourselves into a place where we're starting to rush through tasks. We're going to skip over steps on checks. We may miss verifications of things like that. Those gut feelings, right? Trusting a feeling without confirming the facts, it can be dangerous. Silence, that's a huge one, right? If we're not all speaking up, if we all haven't been given the opportunity to speak up and share, understanding of what we're supposed to do, or ask questions if we aren't understanding what we're supposed to do, we're leaving assumptions out there. So no one's saying anything, we assume everyone's on the same page. And then the I think language. When you hear I think, that's a moment for you to stop. We need to challenge that assumption, right? That's one of those red flag words. The power of assumptions, the questioning, okay? So the solution is simple. And when you think about it, if we're making that many assumptions, it may seem like a daunting task, but if we question everything, we're leaving ourselves open. And a lot of the times we'll get into it, where you get to a point where we get into, we need to implement this framework that I'm going to teach you. Is going to stop you in those autopilot moments, right? So, we get to a job site. I've done many banks just like this one, right? But what's different about this one? Take a moment. What's different? Because obviously this is not the same work location as the 30 other banks that I put together. What's different about this one? And that'll give me an opportunity to stop, take a look at everything that might, pose a hazard to the work that we're about to do. What critical steps must I follow in this task that I'm about to complete? Having that conversation with your team, getting in sync, making sure you're on the same page, making sure everybody knows what we're about to do. So the framework that I put together is, I guess I'm calling it the AAA framework, but it's ask, adapt, and act. And the last two, we should already be doing, right? We go out and identify the hazards, we mitigate them, that's the adapt. So we adapt our plan to mitigate those hazards and do the work we need to do. But the communication part of it is the big part that I want to talk about. Ask. It's going to promote clarity and inform decision making. So if we take a moment and step back and ask the questions, what am I assuming right now, right? What am I leaving unchecked? That's giving us an opportunity. That's making us stop from our normal autopilot, our normal familiar routine, to take the time to ask those questions and identify those things. The second part, adapt. It fosters flexibility and responsiveness. So now we've challenged assumptions, right? Now we have something identified that we can adapt to and move on. And then act, which now we can move forward with purpose, because we've identified our hazards, but those unspoken hazards, which are the assumptions that we may have been making, and move on. So the power of the right questions, and these are the questions I teach crews to use, because they're questions that in most cases will bring out the assumptions in a team. The first one is, what is your role? And this is where the power of these questions lies, is when we use them. Okay, so you have a foreman, he gets his crew together, right? he is not the only one that has identified hazards. We work as a team to identify hazards on that job site. So we're standing at the job site. We're not at the laydown yard doing our tailboard. We're at the job site so we can see the work we have to do. And once we've identified hazards and we've done our tailboard brief and we've talked about it, we take a second stop, right? And the foreman requires everybody on that team to speak up. And I say require because it should be everybody's responsibility to say something, right? And team dynamics plays a huge part in that, right? Because not every team's the same. Not every team's bonded like my team was that day. We had worked together for years. We were all knew what everybody's next move was going to be before they didn't even have to say anything, right? But you got teams, especially like what we're seeing in California with all the work that's going on over there, is the turnover. The turnover is horrible. We're seeing 5 to 10 new employees every week because the 5 to 10 employees we got the week before left to go get a different job somewhere else or more money here and there, right? So the teams are new, but if you roll a team into this into your crew using this framework and the way that it is, the team comes together, they do their JHA, their tailboard brief, right? They've identified their hazards, they've talked about them as a team, and they take a moment to stop and sync as a crew. Now, okay, let's make sure everybody's on the same page before we leave. We start working, right? Okay, Mike, what's your role? Now, I as the foreman know, because you're telling me your job is this, that you understood what I told you we were doing that day, and you know what you're doing that day, right? And now the whole team knows that you are on point, right? You're with us, right? Okay. Now that question, as we go around, that's question 1 for each person. The second question is what's different? Now that person takes a moment, looks at the job site, and identifies what's different than any other time that they've done this kind of work. Or what's different than the last job site? What's different than yesterday? We were at this job site yesterday, but what's different than yesterday, right? Gives them an opportunity, gives him the floor to speak up, because a lot of times a new guy to a crew might not speak up. These are new faces, right? Especially if it's a younger guy, a lot of apprentices, we see that. And then the last question. So these are 3 questions that each crew member, as you go around, will answer. And this is a big one. What are your concerns? What are your concerns? If you look at that job site, what are your concerns, right? What do you not understand? This gives that person the floor, the opportunity to speak up. Now, once everybody's had an opportunity to speak up, and literally, guys, this takes 5 minutes. On a 5-man crew, it doesn't take long for you to go through this. Now you've synced as a crew and go to work. Now that's one time that you use this. But now I'm a 2-man team or a 3-man team. Okay, so I got me and a brother or a sister up in the bucket right now. We're getting ready to go hot, right? We're going in the rubber glove mode, right? And we got our foreman on the ground who's going to watch us, right? Now we need to stop and sync up as a team before we go in the mode, right? And now we go back to that incident I talked about, where the 2 linemen were replacing sleeves, right? Okay, we just finished a phase, pull out. I know that phase is exactly the same as the last one, but let's take a moment and say just one question. What's different? And what asking that question is going to do is pull you out of autopilot, which those linemen were in autopilot. Bam, bam, bam. Pull you out of autopilot. What's different? Man, it's exactly the same as the last one, but are you ready to go? I'm ready, man. All right. Gloves on. All right, going in. Go in. Now we can talk through each step of the phase. Okay, bonding. Okay, throw our Mac on. Mac it out. Mac on. Okay, got our hoist on. I'm on. Okay, suck a bubble. Okay, come and cut. Yep, we're good. Cut. Talk to it as a team as you're coming through. Not going on autopilot where you're not talking to each other. You're out of sync. You're leaving yourself to chance something happening. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will. It's going to get you. When you look at that, that driver got there to his loan, got on loan from out of the crew, pulled up to that digger Derek was getting ready to drive it. I've never driven this truck before. What's different about it? Stop. Hey, what's different? Well, I've never driven this truck. Okay, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to do a good look at it. Like I'm pretty good at my dailies on my trucks, but this one I've never driven before. I'm going to take a good look because I don't know who's driven it before, and I don't know what condition they left it in. You know, that job site we set up at yesterday with this crane, well, we were actually in a parking lot. It was pavement. This is on grass, so we probably should get a soil test in this and a compaction test on the ground here, and maybe go with some bigger outrigger pads because we had a good year in the rain, and we are in the Delta, right? You can see that tower in the background. The tower in the background's up on concrete stilts, right? So what does that tell you? That area floods, right? So that's very soft ground. This team right here is one of the teams I was working with. They actually had this was actually a good catch. They shared with us by using the framework. Their task that day was to go up and replace this pole. Here, reframe it, new pole, everything, and they were going to put a new bank up. And the apprentice, during his ask, adapt, and act questions, asked the guys about a concern that he had with a woodpecker hole that he saw on the backside of the pole. So when they went up and they got a closer look at it, had they removed that bank, the bracket on that bank was holding the pole together because the woodpecker had gotten in there and created such a cavity in that all that was holding that pole together was basically that bank, the bracket on that bank. And so, you know, had they gone up there, left it, gotten up there and removed that, all of that above them would have come down on top of the crew in their bucket truck, you know. And this is one of those things. This actually hits a little home for me. My cousin, he's a journeyman lineman. He's got like 5 years on me. He started in the trade before me, and he's younger than me. But he had a bank, a pole fail on him. The bank and the pole came down on top of him in the bucket. Everything was energized too, and he managed to live about it. I'm actually going to bring him on my podcast to talk about that accident. But he's got a good story to share, and I'm glad that he's willing to share it. But I gave this crew a huge attaboy for sharing it. It's one of those things. This could have been one of those where they went up there, assumed everything was golden, right? And now they had another incident on their and possibly an injury. This could have been pretty bad. You know, reframing risk and make it last. So from me to you, I share this with you guys because one, I care. And I love our trade, and I love my brothers and sisters out there doing the work that we do. There's a lot of pride in our trade. That's one of the things that, I came from the Marine Corps. There's a lot of pride in the Marine Corps. I came from the Marine Corps, and coming into this, it's equal to, if not greater, as far as pride in the work that we do. You know, and so I bring this to you guys as a gift. I was blessed with an opportunity to make changes in my life, to be able to come up with things like this that can help us in the field, so that we can return home to our families. So I want you to strongly consider using this. Just try it. Try it this week. You go out, just try it, even just one day. Stop as a team, you know, at that first job site you're at, and ask, adapt, and act. Identify the assumptions that are hidden, because if we're not speaking up and syncing as a crew, we're leaving ourselves to trusting those assumptions that are deadly. If there's anybody on right now that has any questions for me, please, now's the time to ask them. If not, this is my information. Again, my name's Lito Wilkins, Journeyman Lineman. I'm a safety director with a contractor in California, and founder of Leading Safe Lineworkers. This is my passion. I'm here for you guys. I want to ensure that you guys have the tools, the knowledge to get you home safely at the end of the day. My website's at the bottom of the page. This QR code will take you to all my information, LinkedIn, everything. There's actually, I think, some freebies on there, some checklists and stuff. And if you keep checking back at my website, I'll have more stuff. I'm building a huge package of checklists and guides around this that will help you guys, and they'll be available on that. So just keep checking back. If you have any questions, that's how you can find me. Please reach out and let's connect. Thank you.